Hello everyone. Thank you everyone for joining us today for this very special project showcase. We are going to hear about the projects designed and built by the participants of the Journalism AI Skills Lab. This is a brand new program that we've been developing this year, trying to help these newsroom leaders to acquire skills, especially to understand how LLM work and how to build tools that are practical and that can help them in what they have to do every day in their newsrooms with AI. So I won't be speaking a lot because we have 6 amazing projects today coming up. And the first one is the one by Afore. Afore, she is around here. I'm gonna just pin her for everyone. And she's working for CBC. She's a Taiwan-based local producer for the Canadian Broadcasting Corporation, and she's covering news in Taiwan and China. And thank you, Afore, for joining us today. You have 8 minutes now to tell us about your project.
Okay, hold on a second. Let me just share my project. Okay, let me know if you can see my presentation.
Perfect.
Okay, great. Yeah, so my project is about helping foreign journalists keep track of what's trending in China. The goal of the project is to link China's grassroots voices to global journalism, and I'll share more about the tools I use and how I use them later. So before we start, I just want to give you some background information of this project. So as Anna mentioned, I'm working as CBC, and along with the CBC journalists I'm working with, we're both based in Taiwan, but we're also both responsible for covering news in Taiwan and in China. So we actually found that there are several challenges journalists face when covering China. The first is physical barriers, because as the Chinese government is getting like unfriendly toward foreign journalists. Many of the foreign journalists, they actually don't get the visa to enter China. So like when they're not in China, it's actually making it difficult for them to know what's trending in China, what's going on in China, what are the popular like topics people are talking about in China. And the second is language barriers, because many foreign journalists, they don't speak Chinese or they don't read Chinese. So it's even harder for them to report China only through like limited materials. So what do journalists do now when they are not in China and they don't speak or read Chinese? They can only rely on secondhand accounts from other foreign media. So that made me start to wonder, how might we help journalists outside of China keep track of what's trending? So as I was doing some research, I saw that there's a very useful tool called Baidu Hot Search. So Baidu Hot Search is like a Chinese version of Google Trend. So it's actually capture real-time search trends from hundreds of millions of users. So it's kind of like open a window for foreign journalists to take a look into what's trending in China right now, what are the most popular topics people are searching on Baidu right now. So Baidu Hot Search updates every 5 minutes. But the downside of this is that if you visit the website 5 minutes later, you will not have access to the data it shows like 5 minutes earlier, or let alone the data it shows yesterday or the week before. So it's actually a pity, because if we can find a way to save the data in the long term, then that will be very helpful for journalists when they're covering news in China. So that's why I built this project to be able to store the data on Baidu Hot Search in the long term. Let me share this project with you. Are you able to see my project now?
Yes.
Okay, great. So yeah, this is the project, and this is a Chinese version. So I scrape the data points from Baidu Hot Search like 3 times a day. Okay. And so, like I mentioned, because many foreign journalists, they don't speak Chinese, so I also have built like the English version of this project. And so like, for example, like this is the evening news, because I'm based in Taiwan, so this time zone is facing like China and Taiwan. So the evening news of December 9th already got in, and if you want to read more about this information, you can just hover over to read the description. And so because I'm planning on making this project like save data points from the past 3 months, So at some point, you will reach like save more than 10,000 data points. So I want to find a way to help like foreign journalists really like dig the find the news or data points they might be interested in. So I built this like filter function where they can also search by keywords, by filter by date, or also filter by categories. And sometimes it takes some time for it to load. So because I'm also responsible for covering news in China, so I myself I'm using this project for some time, and it really helped me to uncover some hidden news that if I don't use this project, I would not be able to find it, because those data, those news are not really covered by other mainstream media or other foreign journalists. So let me share with you how this project works. Hold on a second. So how this project works is, first of all, I use GitHub Actions to scrape news on Baidu Hot Search 3 times a day. And after this data is scraped, I send this data to super-based edge functions, and it's connected to LLM for data translation, for example, translate from Chinese to English and to categorize the news. And after the data is being processed, I store it in super-based database. It's like my backend. Then to build the user interface, I use Lovable to build it. And now the project's launched, I'm using Mixpanel to track user behavior and also know where the users know about this project. So some learnings from this project, because I don't have any technical background. So for this project, I actually use vibe coding to code more than 90% of the code. AI is very capable, but through this project, I also learned that there are things that AI will not think of us, but as an AI PM, we must think of. For example, AI will not think of like how to design an efficient or direct workflow. Previously, I had a big problem trying to store the data into the database. I spent like hours trying to figure out what's the problem, how can I solve it. Then I asked Lovable to tell me what's the workflow it designed for me now, and he actually showed the workflow on the left, which is like not efficient and not non-direct at all. So how it designed is that after it fetch the data, it will store the data in database first, and then you will send the data for translation, categorization, and then you will try to save the processed data back to the database again. And this is where I was facing the problem. So as human being, we can see that this is not direct at all. So I asked it to redesign the workflow to something on the right. So I asked it to, after you get the data from Baidu Hot Search, it directly send it for translation, categorization, and I asked it to only store the processed data in database. So after I asked it to redesign the workflow, it immediately solved the problem for me. The other learning I have is AI will not think of performance optimization for us, or if we don't tell it how this project might scale in the future, it will also not plan beforehand for us. For example, previously, if my project was only saving like dozens of data points, the loading was all right. But when it started to save like hundreds of data, you can see that it's actually started to load pretty slow. At some point, it was taking it like more than 10 seconds to load, and it's very unbearable for human being, but somehow AI didn't realize that it's a problem that needed to solve. So as human being, I have to think beforehand, because I know that my project is going to like store more than 10,000 data points in the future. So I asked Lovable to redesign this part where I add the pagination feature, where you can, like, when user they're on page 1, then you will only show data on page 1. When user on page 2, then you will only show data on page 2, and it actually solve the loading problem. So yeah, so right now we only have some simple filtering feature, but in the future I would like it to have some like user interaction or analyzing more like advanced analyzing feature, and I also want to add some authentication feature. So yeah, this project is open to public now. If you're interested in the project, you can use this website to see if this project will help you with your work. So yes, that's the project. If you have any questions, let me know.
Yeah, we have now 2 minutes for questions. So if there are any questions from the audience, we can have them. We see a lot of celebration, and so congratulations also on your project. And well, first of all, is it already being used? Have you tracking how have you been tracking how it's being used by your colleagues?
So I'm using it more, I would say, because my colleague is covering not only China and Taiwan, also like other Asian countries. So how I'm using it right now is like I use it almost daily. And so like once or twice a day, I'll check it to see if there's anything I'm interested in. And if there's anything that pops up that I think we can follow up, I would just like really dig in to see if we can make it into a report.
Awesome. Ganesh is asking if you can please share the URL in the chat.
Sure, let me do that.
Perfect. So there's the link, and we are running. I mean, 2 minutes is very little time, but Afore is also there on Slack, so you can also reach out to her, and in case you have any other questions or feedback or want to try the tool or whatever. Thank you so much, Afore, for this presentation. I think this is very interesting. So is Narin coming up? So Narin, sorry, is Narin ready?
Yeah, hello.
Oh, perfect. Awesome. In the meantime, Afore, there's a question in the chat. You can answer there from how do you locate the timing the data is fetched. So if you want to just go to the chat, we are going to go and go with Narin. Narin, I'm going to ping you for everyone. And to introduce Narin, she is a journalist at ANKA news agency, where she covers foreign policy and regional conflicts in the Middle East. So Narin, you have now 8 minutes to share your project. I'm going to just read my...
Thank you very much, Anna. And thank you very much for the opportunity and for the presentation and stuff. Today, I'd like to walk you through the project that I developed during this Journalism AI Skills Lab, but more importantly, how this training actually reshaped my understanding of AI. Just 1 second. I am working at Ankara-based ANKA news agency. This is a news agency where we cover lots of news bulletins from municipalities, hundreds of municipalities around Turkey. So the reason that I started this project is that we had dozens of municipal press releases every day that turned into a proper, well-drafted, clean news stories, texts by 3 reporters and 2 editors, meaning 5 people spending their 8 hours long shift to turn these long, repetitive promotional texts into well-drafted news texts. And these types of texts are a source of high income for us, for the news agency, but they have low editorial value usually. So the initial plan of mine was to build a fine-tuned AI model that could automate the process of turning these news bulletins, press releases, into proper, well-drafted, clean news stories, texts. At first, I believed that fine-tuning was the professional and necessary way because, I had this perception that complexity could mean quality in when it comes to AI, especially. But this was the the main gain that from this skill lab training that I gained was actually changing my mindset about AI, gaining AI literacy, I could say. The AI told me, the interaction with the trainers actually told me that fine-tuning was not actually the right method for that, because it required high data maintenance cost, and it wasn't flexible for daily changing formats, news, press releases, and of course it was unrealistic for the early stage of prototyping, we could say. And during the training, I decided to use prompting as a method instead of fine-tuning, and support it with API. And the training helped me to separate what I wanted to achieve from how I thought I should have achieved. As I earlier mentioned, AI literacy was the real gain from this lab for me, because after the training I understood which AI method fits which problem. I recognized limitations concerning different models, now, after the training, making predictions about AI's future in journalistic work, I think is much easier for me. This is, I think, one of the biggest advantages that I gained during the sessions as well. Of course, during the training, I gained the ability to choose between different methods of AI, and know to use what method in what cases especially. So I realized that fine-tuning was expensive for my use case, and it needs large labeled data sets. It was risky before all for dynamic newsroom content. API integration, which we are working on, is scalable and great for long term, of course, and but it needs some technical background, IT support, and stuff. So the final pipeline we built actually is capturing the incoming press releases by the municipalities all over Turkey by a reporter, and then asking AI with a properly well prepared clean draft prompt to extract the core news story, remove promotional language, and apply ANKA styles rules, and generates a shorter paragraph, a shorter 3 or 4 paragraph article, and after editor review, publishing it. So basically, actually, it decreased the time and effort the bulletin reporters put in their work. So it helped them save a lot of time. So now they can actually focus on exclusive stories that they want to. They can focus more on journalistic work rather than routine, low quality works, we could say. And another achievement, in my opinion, was that editors. During the training, I've been talking about my colleagues about this project, and of course there was an interaction, engagement about this, and I think it changed the perception of most of my colleagues in my newsroom, I could say, especially the older ones, because editors in Turkey, editors are usually the older journalists, and they have a bad perception about using AI in news writing. And I think this training has changed their perception of AI as well, because I've been, as I said, I've been in an interaction with them while working on this project, and the bulletin reporters started to use it, and they have seen that actually it can, this routine work can be done by a robot better than even a human. What's next? Of course, that after starting to use it with bulletin news, with bulletin press releases, we started to use it for ANKA's English service as well. For routine news, of course. When it comes to, low importance routine types of press releases, types of news, we use AI with a well-drafted prompt again, and it decreases our workload and decreases the effort we put in low importance work as well. As a journalist, I could say that, shortly, I could say that I gained AI literacy with this training. Of course, I would have think of prompting to, write down a news, well-drafted news, prompting AI and stuff. But by the help of this training, the relation between me and AI has changed. I now do it in with a more confidence and knowledge background in AI. I didn't just build a prototype, but a new way of thinking of AI, I could say, with this training. I can answer your questions. And if you have, detailed questions, you can always email me as well. Thank you for listening. That's all.
Perfect.
Me.
Thank you, Narin. And we have run a little bit over time, so perhaps
I'm sorry.
Time for one question. No, don't worry. I think that you cover really nicely, and I think that a lot of people will be more interested in the skills lab after you said about how your journey looked like. So if there's any question, if not, we can ask Graciela. Graciela, if she's around. There's a question from Ganesh.
Hi.
Yes.
In which language these things works? Only in English or the multiple languages?
Both in English and Turkish. We started with Turkish, but then we started to apply it into English service as well. So now we do it both in English and Turkish.
Awesome. So Graciela, is Graciela around?
Yes, I'm here.
Perfect. So thank you so much, Narin, and thank you also for sharing your contact. You can also leave that in the chat. And now we are going to introduce Graciela Rock. Let me just pin you and timer. Graciela is the editor of La Cadera de Eva, a platform focused on gender, human rights, and social justice that is part of La Silla Rota group. And she's joining us from Mexico. So thank you, Graciela. And you have 8 minutes, and they are starting right now.
Thank you so much. And yes, I am presenting our tool that we called Aura, which is short for Audience Understanding and Relevance Assistant. So when I got into the journalism AI skills lab, I wasn't really sure what my final product was going to be. I had an idea, and then I changed that idea a couple of times. And in part because what I was learning from the program, but also by talking a lot with my specific group, like with my team and the larger La Silla Rota group, And then we came up with this. So our problem was that we struggle with a workflow that is not really efficient. So most of the editorial decisions are based on intuition and not real insights. We have a lot of data metrics and information, but it's not really, they are just there. It takes a lot of time for the editors. They spend up to an hour every morning and then during the day to, looking at trends and competitor activity and sort of choose what to cover and who should cover it. And then we create monthly reports that takes hours, but they just go into the digital drawer of reports. So what we did was we figured out and we came up with our solution that was Aura. So we have, it connects all the metrics from different sources. So we use Google Analytics and we use Smart Octo and some other metric tools. And we create a daily leaderboard of the best editorial bets that we can get. And then we cross-reference that with sources from our competitors and Google Trends and some other, at this point, with RSS sources. And then all of that gets neatly put into an email with the recommendation of the topic, quick angle, and a suggestion on who should write about this topic, decided on their authority on those keywords and on those topics. So this is how I felt when I was doing this, like walking, just trying to figure it out. So I built it on Nathan, which was, like a colleague suggested I use this tool, which was really low code. At the end, it was not really low code, but it helped. We chose on the data sources. So we integrated, or I integrated APIs from Google Analytics, from Smart Octo, and the RSS feeds. And then I used Quick Chart for the graphics and set up a couple of agents to identify the relevant topics and generate scores for the topics and the authors. And at first it was a really simple workflow, and just to try it out and see if it worked. And all of it, like most of it, was inside of the agent. And then what I did was that I started picking apart what I had prompt into the agent to actually have different nodes that could allow me to be really specific on which part of the score I wanted to switch or move or like change. So what it delivers now, these are really pretty images, but actually it looks like this. So we get an email with recommendations, like daily recommendations for it's a little bit small and in Spanish, but it basically says, this issue, it's a global issue or a Latin American issue or a Mexican issue. And then this is the suggested author, and then like a quick angle for this topic. And then we get a leaderboard, a weekly leaderboard that says, well, you have so many articles, and this was your engagement, and these are your best authors, and it has some other visualizations and graphics. So that's what we get today, which is really exciting because it helps us. It really helps us a lot. So our journey was like the definition, the sources, then the prototyping, and the automation. And then once we figure out that worked, I open it up for other editors in our larger newsroom. So not only for La Cadera de Eva, which is a small team, but actually for different, for other sections and verticals from the group La Silla Rota, and now they are trying it out, and we are working on like the scoring, like if we need a different geographical scope or a different angle scope or a different scoring for the authors depending on each section. Our obstacles, and my obstacles were first the data inconsistencies, like there were very different sources and mismatch metrics, and that like with normalization nodes and cleaning nodes, it worked. And then definitely the tech and coding skills, like when I hear low code, it's never no code and never low code. And also that good prompting was not enough. Like I actually needed code. So that was solved through many, many hours of trial and error, and also asking for external help. Eventually I was able to by myself like figure out what was not working in my code or where was the error, but it really took me many, many hours. And then of course like the API limitations on some data. You know, like at this point we do not have social media information, but we'll eventually hope to get there. And then my lessons, the lessons learned. Well, what worked well was that vibe coding, using vibe coding to actually see what we wanted and then figure out how we could get there. So at that point, that helped us to see, okay, we want to get to this dashboard, but what we actually need is automatization, so we can go for an email at this point. And then, of course, the areas for improvement, the data integration, the technical barrier, but I think everything was quite good, like we figured it out. And I'm just gonna, so the future roadmap is like in short term, like really refine our scoring logic and add the social signals and get all the feedback from our editors. On the medium term, to develop the actual dashboard, and in the long term to have a strong enough tool to explore partnerships with other small and medium-sized newsroom, especially in Latin America. And what we hope to get, and I'm just gonna switch really quick to show you this, is like this is our vibe coding prototype, in which we would get our sources and then our suggestions, in which if we like it, then we'll start it and get the option of getting initial draft, AI draft, or we can flag it and said, you know, this is not working because of that, and then just see the trend issue topics like in real time, and the best keywords for our newsrooms and our best authors, and all of these like in a very visual and easy way where our journalists can interact with it. And that's it.
Okay. Well, we ran a little bit over time, so we have like 20 seconds for a question. I don't know if someone has a question. If not, I'm gonna also ask you to please leave your contact details in the chat, so we can also reach out to you later. And now I need Mats Ommundsen.
Yes.
Are you around?
I'm here.
Perfect. Perfect. And so I'm gonna pin you for everyone. And you have 8 minutes.
Yeah, do you have the screen where I show something called data canvas? Yes. Okay.
Perfect. Yes.
Yeah, my name is Mats Ommundsen. I'm a journalist, but the last years I've been working in the development department here at my newspaper. And because of that, I've sort of accidentally become the go-to guy if someone in the newsroom needs help with a chart or something, or other visualizations for their stories. And quite often they come to my desk with some messy Excel files or a rough idea, asking, Mats, can you please help me visualize this idea or this story? And I usually say yes, but I also then try to teach them how to do it themselves. But almost never they do it, because when it goes a couple of weeks, they don't do it. They forget how to do it, and they come back to me with the same problem again. And I find that many of our good stories are lacking spreadsheets or visualization because the hurdle to visualize it is too high. So since I haven't been able to solve this with just training, I thought when I started this project that we needed automation. So I was trying to make a tool that gives every reporter the power of a graphics desk without them needing to relearn the tool every single time. So that's why I built this. You can see here, that's called Data Canvas. Data Canvas, it's an AI-powered design partner. It doesn't just draw lines, it reads your article, understands the journalistic angle, and instantly suggests the right visualization for your story. I use ChatGPT, but it's not a wrapper under the hood. I have built a chain of specialized AI agents that work together like a real graphics team would. So the first prompt is like the editor agent that reads the text to find the story. So I can show you here. I can just get a story from my newspaper. I'll just take the story. I can paste here, and I press fetch, and I get the story. Then I can ask to analyze the story, and then it reads the story and comes up with a suggestion of what types of graphs that would be a good idea to have in this story based on what's written in the story. And I also get the tables with the data, so I can see that there's no hallucinations and double check that the numbers are correct and stuff like that. And then I have a strict code-based guardrails to ensure that the chart is readable, sorted correctly, and factually accurate. So when I press log graph, make a graph, it's not an I, it's code running and making the graph. So now I can show you. I'll press graph here, and I get a graph. And I can then check how it will look on the mobile, because mobile first. So here's that. And then I have a graph. I have a link to that graph, so I can just take that send to CMS. And then I can go into my newsroom and take the graph and drag and drop it into the story. And then I have a graph for the story. So I can just show here. Yeah, you can see the graph is in the story. There's no text, but that's the way it works. So it's a really fast way to get consistent graphs in the story, and also every graph with the same design palette and stuff like that. So it's an orchestrated workflow designed to be safe enough for a newsroom. And what makes this tip, it's three things. It's context awareness. It understands that budget versus spending implies a comparison, or that surging prices needs a trend line. I try to make it think like a journalist. It's also zero friction. You can throw anything at it, messy copy paste or raw text, and it cleans it instantly. At least I try to make it do that. So let me just show you an example of that. I have a really messy Excel file. So let's see. Let me just show you the file. Yeah. Okay, you just take my word for it. It's messy. So I can just take the Excel file, take it here, open it, and I can start analyzing. And now it's not analyzing the text, it's analyzing CSVs or Excel or other spreadsheet formats. So now it's analyzing that as well. And I get suggestions for how to visualize this Excel file. So here's a bar spec, and here it's also a bar spec, 2 bar specs, and the last one is a bar spec. So let's just show how this could work. So it's taken that messy Excel file and sorted it from highest to lowest and made everything so it's easy to read and present for the readers. And also, I've tried to keep journalistic standards. So it has a style guide. It knows that time flows left to right, and that top list must be sorted. So that's the tool I've built, and I will show you some more examples on how to use it, because I have some other text and examples. I have made an English example text. So I'll paste in the tool. So here you have a text about rate shock and how it hits homeowners. And you can see here's a text with a lot of numbers, but no graphs. So if you then want to graphs in that, you can just press start to analyze. It will analyze the text. It will made a visual vocabulary Bible that it has. If this data is best shown in this way, so it always checks what's the best way to show the data. So here I get like a graph here. You can see a line graph. And you can also see a quality check behind here. It's like how good is it to read, and is there some problem in the data set and stuff like that. So that's one of the solutions. We also have something more complex than a line graph. So the idea is to make it really easy for journalists to use graphs in the story and have more of a stories with graphs. So here's a scatter spec. You can see you get a scatter spec. That's a quite advanced graph for journalistic storytelling, but when it works and it's perfect. And the last thing I'm trying to make now, it's like a corporate map with the stories and the numbers. So you can see here I have an experimental here and makes a graph, a chart with numbers and products. So this is my tool. Yeah, that's my presentation.
That's perfect, Mats. Thank you so much. We have time for a couple of questions. So if there's any question in the chat, they are already praising the combination of automation and human in the loop. I think it's very visible. So yes, and I think that a lot of people will try to. Yes, they're asking which CMS do you use.
We are using Schibsted CMS, so it's I work for Polaris, but we are using Schibsted's CMS. So it's this is just embed codes working in Schibsted, so it would be the same. Just make an embed code that works with other newsrooms. So I haven't made this public because I use APIs to get the stories, unpublished materials and stuff like that for this, but it could be an open tool as well. But then I would have to remove that fetch from article integrations and stuff like that.
That's perfect. Okay, so we still have 2 presenters left. Mats, if people want to reach out to you, how should they?
I'll leave my contact information in the chat.
Perfect. That's awesome. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mads. And I'm gonna call Rina. Rina, if she's around.
Hello, yeah, I'm sharing my screen.
Perfect. Awesome. Then I'm finding you for everyone. And you have 8 minutes once you can share your screen. Perfect. We can see it now. So 8 minutes starting now.
All right, excellent. Thank you all. I'm Rina. I'm a senior data analyst at the Washington Post, and I'm going to walk you through Nexus, an AI-powered cross-platform analytics tool. In short, Nexus is an AI-powered newsroom analytics solution where we're uniting disparate data sets, linking social posts, articles, on and off platform performance and promotion to a single story. And I imagine that web looks something like this. I imagine the story linking out to all of the different nodes and the different ways that it appears, whether it be podcast or newsletter, etc. The news landscape at the Washington Post and in so many places is very diverse. Like, news is coming in so many different forms. Here is a sampling of just a few. You can see we have newsletters, we have things on Apple News, we have things on Instagram and multiple Instagram accounts, podcasts, and we also have YouTube. So we're seeing news in so many different forms, but what becomes very difficult is to figure out how we can measure this data. I asked myself this question: how might we measure the impact of our journalism across platforms when our content is taking so many forms? A little bit more context on this. So we'll often find that when a story is doing well on the site, newsroom leaders will ask, oh, is this also doing well off platform? Are people listening to the podcast related to this? Is this doing well in vertical video format? I've always found that these questions are very straightforward. If we see something doing very well on the site, oh, is it doing well off platform? Seems like a straightforward question, but the data infrastructure actually makes it so it's a bit of a complicated question to get to the answer. The data is quite disconnected. Here as a sampling of how I might think about the different data sets we have. You can see some are available via API, some are available via dashboard, some are queryable in SQL, some aren't. But I also use the word available via API or available via dashboard because it doesn't always mean that it is accessible to every single person in the newsroom. But the commonality, and perhaps the most important takeaway from this slide, is that nothing is linked to articles, and vice versa, nothing is linked to audio and social posts. But there's also some opportunity in terms of the metadata that we also have. So with social post data, we have full captions. For podcasts, we have very long descriptions, and I'll show you what that looks like. And for article metadata, we have headline and description. And if you are so inclined, we could also probably extract body text. Here is a look at what that data looks like. So here is an example of an Instagram post, an example of a podcast. What is highlighted in blue is actually data that we can pull. So that's actually quite a lot of text. And it should be a ripe opportunity for identifying how we might link them together. Just so you can see this in practice, like here's an Instagram caption and here is an article headline and description. Just using our naked eyes, we can see a lot of similarities. Gen Z, generation, members of Gen Z, generation, technology, etc. And similarly, when we're comparing a podcast description to an article headline and description, we can make we can catch similar things. Donald Trump, presidential fitness test, public schools, Obama, etc. So there are similarities that we can see with our naked eye, but I was curious what we can see if we try something like vector embedding. So I leverage a text embedding model to convert that context into that content text into a numerical representation. I imagine that realm would look something like this. Here is what the vector embedding actually looked like in Python, vectorizing the articles, the Instagram posts, the podcast description. And then I used a similarity scoring method where I was looking at how similar is this article to this Instagram post. And at this point, I was checking one by one. Oh, does this actually seem like these were related posts? A little bit of model testing here. And does this podcast seem like it is actually related to this article? I was asking myself questions like, if I'm looking at this Instagram post, should I be considering articles from 10 days ago, articles from 3 days ago, articles from a month ago? These are questions that I was asking myself at that stage. But even though we're looking at similarity scoring, we also very much have a human in the loop. So if there is a URL in the podcast description, in that long description, default to that article URL. That is clearly linked to the article. And for a Facebook post, if there's a link, that's clearly directly related to that article. I will show you a live demo just so you know all of the numbers are randomized, just a quick disclaimer. And here is what Nexus looks like. I'm going to throw in this article. I know it is a good candidate for us here. Again, numbers are randomized, but I'm including elements like how many users reached the story, how many users did the story reach, So you can see this is article level data, and then how did readers engage with the story. Also article level shares, for example, in particular, shares are shares directly on the article page. How did readers find this story? But here we enter our world of some of the AI powered stuff that we were able to deliver here. This is an Instagram post that I found to be related to that URL, and a Facebook post related to it, and also the podcast here. It is such a small thing, but I'm always proud here that it's not just that we identified this connection. We could also identify and link in like the related metrics. So it's not just saying this podcast is related to this article. We also have like the relevant metrics. I also included this little summary insights drawer, which is this is just F strings. This is pretty logical, but I also added this go deeper with AI feature that I'm still kind of testing. We're calling OpenAI right now. Let's hope it behaves. And this is what it looks like. I added this little summary just to kind of start experimenting with it. This was like a live call to OpenAI. I'll go back to the presentation and just walk you through the end of it. Something that I kept in mind as I would get so deep in the weeds, I'd come back to like, why am I doing this? Like, why does this actually matter to a news organization? I believe in a world where users are discovering it. And with that discovery, we can then start to build more improved analytics and insights with something like Nexus. And while we're building those improved analytics and insights, we can start to make smarter curation decisions that I think can build more meaningful relationships with our users. And ultimately, I think when we're building these important relationships, that might lead to more conversion and monetization opportunities. A little bit of a walk down memory lane. Here is what it looked like in its earliest stages. Here were my earliest wireframes. This is what it looked like when I took it to user testing. On the radar for my next steps, I want to continue to evaluate and adjust the logic and parameters. Again, continue asking questions around this post was posted at this time. How far back should I be considering articles? And similar with podcasts. I want to continue doing more model testing and assessment, like looking at articles and podcasts and posts that are coming in real time and determining like what are the best parameters to continue to make, to identify what is matching here. I want to include video and other platforms. I think I would be using like vector embedding transcripts. That would be the approach I would take there. And I want to design and document a more sustainable pipeline to bring Nexus to some of our internal existing analytics tools. A couple of quick takeaways and lessons learned. Embrace iteration. As you saw, it has taken so many different forms. The earliest wireframes were not very pretty, but they were enough to take to user testing, which was, I think, part of the iteration process. It's scary to take something so raw to users, folks who will actually be using the product, but it's certainly a very important milestone and stepping stone throughout this project. And embrace feedback both from people who have intimate knowledge of the tools and the infrastructure, and from people who are looking so top down and have never seen the infrastructure before. And that's certainly a credit to the folks in the Journalism AI Skills Lab, folks who could really provide a different perspective than folks in the newsroom, and lean into curiosity. This is throughout my design of this project, I knew that Nexus, the key of it is, okay, like I've created this link, but then I kept asking myself questions like, what if I added these tooltips? Or like, what if I added a dashboard where it's like asking questions instead to like change the user interface? And what if I added like an AI summary tool? I kept asking myself those questions, and I was very excited and continued to be really engaged when I was able to continue to lean into that. And that's what I've got. Thank you so much. I'm including my email over here too, and feel free to reach out.
That's absolutely perfect. 8 minutes. So we have 2 minutes for questions. There's already one about if it's possible to access or download Nexus or like work with Nexus. Are you thinking about that for other newsrooms?
That's a good question. I'm still like developing it, and I feel like I'm still developing and figuring things out. So I'm not at that stage yet, but I will be certain to let the Journalism AI community know when I am at that stage, if I reach that stage.
Perfect, awesome. Well, here there's people also enjoying your energy and the work that you put. Congratulations on that. I think that it's very what you mentioned about like the iteration and how to receive feedback and how to build a tool from what you can discuss with others and everything. It's part of the Skills Lab and everything that you've been part through. And I just want to share, because I have not done it before during the session, the link to the Skills Lab, so people understand what kind of program you went through during the past 3 months and how you build these tools in a community of learning, in a share and a peer-to-peer environment. So if there's any other question, you have Rina's email here, so make sure to reach out if you have any other question or feedback or interested in building something similar. This is the whole idea of this project showcase, that you get these ideas and you try to say, hey, this is doable, or this is something I could start working on. So any other question? I think that well, we are just getting to the hour, so, and we have one last speaker for today. That's Briana Smith, coming also from the United States. We've left the Americans now. Briana, are you around?
I am here.
That's perfect. So I'm gonna bind you for everyone. And once you are able to present, we can start, and you will have your 8 minutes.
All right, so let me go ahead and share my window. You should be looking at a presentation now. Let me start the slideshow.
That's perfect.
Okay.
So Briana from NPR, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you. And as Anna said, I'm Briana Smith from NPR. I'm a senior digital analyst, and I'm going to walk you through the tool that I built today around metadata. So I've been passionate about metadata and organizing metadata, especially coming from an organization with such long history and lots of content, right? And so I was looking to build a tool to help us organize, record, understand our data, our metadata, and better understanding what type of content we're creating. And essentially throughout this process, through the JournalismAI skills lab, this changed essentially from a coding prototype really to becoming more of a strategic driver for our organization. And so I definitely did pivot, which I'll talk about more in a second. So to start us out, just a bit about some of the problem, right? And I don't think it's a secret that some newsrooms face a dirty data problem, and we are no exception. I think that we have these disconnected systems that allow that on one end we got tagging that's a little bit more messy and flat, and on the other end we have a structured archive that's more rigid and built for storage and retrieval and hierarchical. And these systems are disconnected and they don't necessarily talk to each other. And so I think that creates some struggles when it comes to innovation, when it comes to personalizing content for our users, or creating new experiences, and even pulling insights as a digital analyst, right? And you have to choose which system you're going to use, and then one system doesn't necessarily match the needs of the folks in the newsroom, where the other system, it makes it very difficult to make meaning out of a messy collection of tags. And so you can essentially we encounter an issue when it comes to bringing up insights and in the newsroom. So when I started the skills lab, as I mentioned, my goal was relatively small. It was really to build a tool. It was to build a Python script to tag stories. And I really wanted to understand, okay, how could I build something that uses AI models in order to classify content? And pretty soon on, I realized that that wasn't the biggest challenge that I was going to face here. It was more around the infrastructure. Like, what do we actually need to build? We have these two systems that, one works really well and one is sufficient. And I think the bigger challenge was understanding, I don't want to just create a tool that's a Band-Aid that I plop into my newsroom, but I actually need to really work with both the archive side and CMS side to understand, what is the history of this infrastructure and what can we actually do? Should we be building something on top? Should we be expanding, what we already have, and getting a better understanding of that? And so instead of just building a simple classification tool, I ended up pivoting to building a strategic sandbox. And it was more to proof out strategy. So this tool essentially has become more of a living technical documentation to help us understand what are some of the things that we can do when it comes to putting AI in the loop, is keeping humans in the loop at the same time as well, but creating a classification tool and workflow that allowed us to leverage some of these new, to leverage AI, but also create something that was tailored for our organization and what we actually needed to do. So what did I end up building? Clio is a sandbox, as I mentioned, and it's a bridge that allows us to test some of these future strategies. So it's not just a tagging tool, but it's a metadata sandbox, which really is more of a containerized microservice that's designed to ingest content from any source, text, CSV, or API, and map it against any taxonomy using vector embeddings. And this is now allowing us to A/B test new taxonomies, to clean up historical data programmatically. You can run a large set of data through this tool and actually get results on how different taxonomies will classify your content. And what does that mean for like search and retrieval? What does that mean for semantic search and for keyword search as well? And so essentially it ingests that content. It does some normalization and cleaning, vector embeddings, as I mentioned, and then it does classification and ranking in order to create a set of tags or a set of classifications that are not just relevant, but relevant and diverse, so you don't end up with a lot of tags that have the same meaning, essentially. And to give you a quick look at the full architecture here, you can see that it's not just kind of a simple one-path viewer, but we've got multiple paths going on. And I know it's a bit small here, but you've got a whole taxonomy database going on this side here. And what I really like about this, I think, is I'm continuing to build this out not only as just like a taxonomy database that holds multiple taxonomies, but allows you to edit. It becomes now a human in the loop tool to help you build data sets that are corrected data sets. And so this is something that we're building out right now. And I think, that's been a huge part of this project, is understanding how we could build something to actually create better training data sets as well. And so that taxonomy database has started to evolve to become a little bit more robust than it is right now. And then we also have the NLP engine in the middle that does a lot of what I was just mentioning around vectorization, and it does some sentiment analysis as well. And it's also a place where I've been able to showcase the power of, and to non-technical audiences, we're able to showcase the power of semantic search versus keyword search. And so I'll talk a little bit more about that as well, which is what I'm calling the vector space. I think one thing that really came out of one learning that has been, not just for myself, but for other folks in my organization as we've been exploring this, is around this kind of vector space. And I've been explaining this to folks to like just really convey how powerful semantic search is. And so I want to briefly touch on the text, and because I unearned this tech, but I honestly think this is kind of where some of that magic happens. And we've moved away from keyword matching. And so if a story mentions something like carbon credits, but not climate change, and you're searching for climate change, and that keyword search is going to fail. But we are using semantic vectorization. So I think of it, and with this metaphor of the grocery stores, we're not checking the name that's exactly on the box of the product, but we're checking the location on the shelf. And so the AI knows that carbon and climate sit on the same shelf in that vector space. And so it connects them automatically. And essentially all we're doing after situating all of the classifications from multiple taxonomies and your story text, and that can be a batch of thousands of stories or just a single story in that vector space, then the model is then taking a look at the distance between all of those classifications in your stories and deciding which of those are more relevant. So I think that's a really powerful part of this process. Another part of the process that I ran into was optimization, and this is the early version, and I don't have the screenshot here, but the early version was very different from the current version, and it took quite a long time to tag. So using a test batch of about 760 stories, it was taking me about 15 minutes to process that batch of stories, and that's far too slow for even a sandbox. And so rewrote the backend using batch matrix vectorization, which is a fancy way of saying that I moved the call to the AI outside of the loop so that it's not being called for every single story, but it's being done in a batch instead. And that really helped the processing time during this process as well. And I'll talk a little bit about the key capabilities, and this is actually ever expanding, as at this moment we are working together on this to figure out to take pieces of this actually and to launch these microservices and to create this tool. Right now I'm showing it locally when I hop over to that tab in a minute. But we can do, as I mentioned, comparison, A/B testing, new taxonomies throughout this program, throughout this process. Not only, I mentioned the strategic pivot starting with the simple tool, but one big part is that we've gotten a lot of organizational buy-in, and that has been one big part of the success. Not only, were we able to form working groups internally to help address this problem, but also to take the learnings that I've been taking from this tool that I've been able to build and from this program, and figure out, okay, how do we apply this to what we're trying to do? And so it's been really an amazing process of, again, getting that organizational buy-in and now starting to work actively with folks who are taxonomists and archivists and engineers and developers, and all working together to figure out what parts of this do we take, and how do we make this something that is modular, that is flexible, and that is future-proof. And so working to figure that out right now. And I saw my time limit coming up, and so I am, as I mentioned, cross-functional working group, new headcount, infrastructure, roadmap, taking this to production in the way that makes the most sense for our organization. And so I'm going to skip over really quickly and just spend a few seconds showing you what the tool looks like at the moment. And so this is Clio. And as I mentioned, you've got several different ways of processing, taking in input. You can do the single story, you can do batch processing. You can also connect to an API. And so for demonstration purposes, I've just pulled a story that is pretty simple. It's about it's about the history of dogs, domestication. And I'm using two relatively small taxonomies, so you can see what this process looks like if I'm running this classification on a single story. So one thing that we can immediately see is we're looking at user needs classification, and which is something that some newsrooms are exploring as well. And also this sentiment analysis. So it gives you two numbers. One is polarity, and the other is the subjectivity of your content to start to look at, is this fact versus opinion? And then you can side by side see how these classifications I've labeled your content for this example, and how how close those classifications are as well. And so you can see this is just using a standard model, so the confidence on these user needs are relatively low. But as many organizations know, you would work on your own user needs model. This is just for demonstration purposes to show you what this tool can look like. And so I've already done a batch upload where I'm able to here show folks a little bit more about again, I mentioned what are the power of semantic search. And one good example is like if I'm searching for global warming and I'm looking at a keyword search, you can see here it's giving me one result, and that is likely because the global warming is mentioned in the text that's there, and that's just a straight up keyword matching search versus a semantic search. You can see now I've got 14 results, and these all look from the titles pretty relevant when it comes to climate change and global warming. And so this is the kind of that power of semantic search, right? We're not just looking for direct matches, but we're looking at concepts. We're vectorizing it to store the meaning of that content and then finding those matches. And so I'm gonna pause there because I know I am running out of time, and open it up for questions. But if you have any questions about this, please reach out to me. I'll leave my email in the chat. But otherwise, thank you. I appreciate your time.
Thank you so much. It was super interesting, and I think, especially like that kind of different tools and options that can offer to anyone. We have a couple of seconds for some questions. I don't know if anyone wants to ask something to Briana, because I know it also ran out of time. I just want to thank everyone, just letting all the people know that the Skills Lab had 20 participants. Today, there were a lot of that wanted to also to share, but of course, it's the end of year. We have a lot going on at the same time. So I'm gonna just thank everyone who was here today and introducing us to their amazing project.
We're going to wrap it up now, but thank you to all the speakers who took the time out to be here today. It was really great seeing all of your presentations all over again.
Thank you, Lakshmi, for taking over. Thank you, everyone, for joining us. We are going to have also the case studies for all these projects. If you haven't explored them yet, we also have all the case studies from the Innovation Challenge. So there are like a lot of places where you can get inspiration to learn about what you can do with AI and these amazing options and opportunities that it can offer when used responsibly, as we always want to do in Journalism AI. So thank you again.